Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we'll bring you a special, something that many of you probably would appreciate, since a lot of you have different questions and you've been trying to ask them. So we actually managed to send a few questions to Alexey, along with many other viewers from the other streams, other channels where he speaks. And today's stream with Vasil Golovanov is about an hour of Q&A, different kinds of questions, political, personal, and many others, including a segment of very uncomfortable ones. So you might appreciate those as well. There are several questions from our viewers there. So if you guys have more, don't be shy. Put them down in the comment section. We will get them to Alexey. And in the next Vasil Golovanov stream, he'll try to answer those as well. A special thanks go today, of course, to Bill and to Olga Lewis and Elena Einhorn. Thank you guys for supporting our work. And with this, here is Q&A. Enjoy. Hello, everybody. Today is the 28th of October, 2023, 612th day of a large-scale war of Russia against Ukraine. Alexey Arestovych is in our live stream. Good evening. Yes, good evening, everybody. This is our stream number 17. I would remind you that in our last stream, Alexey asked our viewers to ask him uncomfortable questions. We even put that on our title in today's show, and there will be some uncomfortable questions definitely today. But we'll start not from them, not with them. We'll start with questions related to some of the main topics of this week, but we definitely will get to those questions. All right, now let's start with several ones that I cannot avoid since people are asking. This, of course, is a topic about Putin. First of all, anonymous Telegram channel General SVR posted a comment that Putin is no more, and then Professor Solovey in his stream, who is probably the one behind that SVR channel, had said that Putin probably deceased on Valdai. What do you think about it? So, why do we care if Putin is alive? What we need is the change of Russian politics. If Putin's death will not change Russian politics towards Ukraine, I do not see the reason for us to be happy. I have my religious motivation, so I'm sorry. People can be happy about this news, but I won't. Second, if he didn't even die, but he changed his politics towards Ukraine and seized military action and figured out a way to withdraw his troops, I'd be happy about that. So whether he is dead or alive, it doesn't quite matter. If he's dead and Russians are still storming Avdiivka and attacking us on the south, then what does his death bring us, right? Yeah, me personally, I want him to be in Hague Tribunal. Right, I'm not asking you, I'm putting a rhetorical question up there to people who are asking. Did he die or did he not? No, that's not what we want. We don't need his death, we want a change of Russian politics. If he'll be smitten by lightning and he changes his foreign politics, then awesome. Do you think it could have happened, though? Well, Vasil, we don't know. Whom do we see now presented as if it is Putin? There's a lot of conspirology that he died in 2015, 2018, 2019, the beginning of this year. They're showing us doubles. The doubles are meeting with Chairman Xi, and they're posing for pictures. Which of them is Putin? I don't know, right? Okay, next question about Avdiivka. Russian losses near Avdiivka are probably the biggest for the whole 2023. They cannot proceed with their offensive as they intended. Over 4,000 of Russian military personnel have died during their attacks of Avdiivka, as reported by Minister of Defense Umerov during his conversation with Minister of USA Austin. What do you think about Avdiivka? I would remind here that Russians wasted about 40,000 people taking Bakhmut, and together with, and including wounded and Wagner's, there probably would be a total of 150 altogether, Bakhmut Solidar, 150,000. And what's up now? Who owns Solidar now, and where Russian troops near Bakhmut? We are refusing to understand things about Russia. Russian leadership doesn't give a damn about how many they wasted taking the position. Their criteria, did they take it or did they not? And given that the potential for mobilization is probably 4 times larger than Ukraine's, they can afford losses 4 times larger than we do. But they're biting time and time again. They're biting off pieces of our territory, and we are not so much. We had some bright moments, Kharkov and Kherson, but so far we're not too successful. So I would suggest we get rid of. Oh, we'll get them giddy moves, and we're killing a lot of them. Yeah, we are. We are, and we were killing a lot of them near Bakhmut and near Soledar and near Popasne, and how we were destroying near Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. I will tell you more. We destroyed Russian cadre military at the entrance of this war, at the beginning. And still, what do you think will be with Avdiivka, Alexey? Well, I'm pessimist about that. I think they will take Avdiivka. If they will not, this will be a miracle for which we would need to say a prayer to Lord and send a big thanks to our military. All right. President of Turkey, Recep Erdogan, gave a speech at a meeting to support Palestine today in Istanbul. He claimed that what's happening now in Gaza is murder, and he called upon countries to help stop it. And it's a quote here that in a big meeting dedicated to Palestine, they had about 1.5 million people at Ataturk Airport. Turkish BBC service rated the crowd at about several hundred thousand. Erdogan's quote is that West is most responsible for what's happening in the Gaza Strip. Israel, again, a quote, behaves as a military criminal. Of course, each country has the right to defend itself, but where is justice in this case? End of quote. Erdogan said that who was crying crocodile tears about peaceful citizens who are dying in Ukraine are now watching death of innocent civilians in Gaza. He thinks that the West supports the cutthroat effort in Gaza. And Turkey, by the way, is a NATO country. Do you think he is provoking a conflict between United States and other NATO members, or what's the final goal of these statements? Well, Vasil, Turkey is a NATO country not due to Erdogan. It was a different government that brought it there, and Erdogan is standing on different positions, pan-Turkism and Osmanism. And for him, being a part of NATO is not exactly comfortable. He is relying on a different electorate group, and he is leading a different flow of politics in the country. For him, NATO is a rudiment. And you can understand his politics when he sent a ship with supplies and presumably some ammo and military stuff when he just became a leader in Turkey. And Israel had to intercept that boat. And since then, the relations between Turkey and Israel have deteriorated, and they have not recovered since. So he's claiming what he actually believes, that's his politics. And I need to remind that his main basis, support basis, is traditional population of provinces and villages. But there is a different Turkey in cities. And Turkish society is split about 50-50. And that secular part of Turkey is pro-NATO. But so far, secular part have not won on the elections, and he is remaining president of Turkey for quite a few years. And yes, he is building a certain direction in his politics. And Israel actually sent an order to remove even diplomatic workers of Israel from Turkey after that speech. So if there may be a big war, global war, which side Turkey will be on as a NATO member? From Turkey, I think we can expect the most unexpected turns. But I think they will probably have to face a very serious pressure from NATO, from European Union, and they'll have to make some big fundamental choice in this situation. I suspect I know what Erdogan will do, but it's a difficult situation. For example, Azerbaijan is fully supportive of Israel, while Turkey is not. And Azerbaijan and Turkey are military allies. But again, will Turkey fight in a certain faction or not? Turkey is not on good terms with Iran. So if Iran is engaged in war, Turkey will have to guide a very delicate policy, being against Israel, but not with Iran. So it'll be very Byzantine policy for them to go. They're kind of used to that. Look, Turkey is at the same time Black Sea, Caucasus, Balkan, Middle East, Mediterranean country. And they have to be waging different politics on each of the regions. How many vectors of politics, and they have to balance it differently in each case. All right, viewers, let's go to different questions that you've been posting before, when the stream was announced, before we started. But before we go there, please do not forget to click that like button. That's important to bring more eyeballs. I know nobody likes it, and I don't like begging for that, but that is an important feature. Right, Vasil, at least one mention is important. People need to understand that each like is 10 additional suggestions. More people will see the stream. Right, we do not capitalize on these likes directly, so it's just important to get more people. So there'll be some questions from English-speaking viewers who are watching your streams in translations, and they've sent some of these questions. I adapted some of them a little bit, but here they are. It's understandable that Palestinians support Hamas, but not all of them. What would you do, Alexey, if you were one of these citizens in Palestine? I would try to get out of there by any means. Understandably, it's not easy, but you cannot take public position there because it's a guaranteed death, and it's not your death, but also your relatives if you stand against Hamas. But once you're out, then you can take a public position against Hamas if you feel like it. If not, just live your life. But being a hostage in a terrorist enclave, which Hamas and Islamic Jihad turned the Gaza Strip into, this is a destiny one would not wish upon your enemy. So leave that area by any means. Next question. Ukrainian Foreign Affairs Ministry said that it's probably unreal to push Russia out of United Nations completely. Why? Republic of China was expelled from United Nations, and if Russia is expelled from nation, it will not lead to any global disaster. Why do you think it's not happening? I think it's because United Nations is depleted as an organization because it's incapable of making these decisions. Back in the day, USSR was expelled from League of Nations, which preceded United Nations, right? But modern society is paralyzed and cannot face these difficult decisions. So it's probably not wise to expect that to happen, but it doesn't mean that we should not be fighting for it, and we should not be continuously bringing it up with NATO, that eventually maybe we can break that ceiling and basically keep pointing to the fact that Russia is an illegal member of NATO. Well, Soviet Union was, and Russia was not even the founder of United Nations organization, unlike Ukraine and Belarus, which are mentioned in the founding documents. So here there are more things to follow, but even if we continue pushing that agenda, very unlikely it'll bring us any fruit. Our defense and security mechanisms in the world are very inefficient, and that's exactly why all these wars happening, because our mechanisms are not allowing to stop them at beginning. So we, I think, will either have a different United Nations, or people will eventually just cease turning to that. Right now it exists only because there is no adequate and valid replacement for it. Next question. You're talking about Ukrainian Surovikin lines, but building these fortified regions will require a lot of equipment to be used, including civilian equipment as well, which is less armored. Russia is already using bombs, guided bombs, and other munitions on the front line, and what will preclude them from destroying all these engineering equipment, both equipment and people? What do you think is the way to do it? Well, we don't have much options, right? We either will be suffering losses, either military who will be ill-equipped to defend our territory, or some civilians who will be building the lines. And it depends upon how you build it. If you build them deeper in, at a distance far enough from the front line, where field artillery cannot reach, and only long-range artillery can reach that, and you cannot, it's a difficult proposition to keep using long-range artillery on every excavator. Plus, you can use air defense systems to protect, because that's military work, and you can definitely justifiably use air defense. And thirdly, military have different measures to minimize the losses. But the main argument would be to build them at a distance from the front line, probably about 20 kilometers from the current front line. Army holds the front, and construction is going a little deeper. And then right now, if our troops will have to leave Avdiivka, the main question is, where are they going to? Is there a line where they can go to and defend, causing more casualty, doubling the enemy casualties when they try to storm it, and minimizing your own casualties? We don't have that, right? Before we continue with the next question, I want to remind our viewers to not forget to subscribe to YouTube channel of Alexey, to his Telegram channel, and to Alpha and Omega, and of course to Privateer channel if you have not done that yet. Do not forget to click that subscribe button, that's important. Next question, Alexey, in your opinion, how quickly will Israeli army be done with Hamas? I think they'll need, 2 to 3 months at least. That's a quote from the classics, right? Yep. Another question to Alexey from Ashkelon. I'll remind our viewers that it's a question from a city which is often attacked from Gaza by Hamas. Alexey, what is your attitude to the offensive anecdote that Lisa Lazarson told in the show of Benedictov, where she was giggling over the difference between a rail car with concrete and a rail car with dead Jewish children? And it's painful still right after Hamas attack, and she comes here and pours sulfuric acid into the fresh wound. This is horrible. The people just lost their bearings absolutely to be telling these jokes, even if it was not evil-minded. If it was evil-minded, that's even worse. Alexey, tell me if the army of Iran is 3 plus or is it higher, and how it is compared to Israel and United States. So army of Israel is about 5. Army of Iran is probably about 4, 4.5, depending upon the type. They're about 1 generation lagging behind. And the United States is, of course, stronger. But still, it doesn't mean that the struggle will be easy. Iran has a way to retaliate, even if they miss attacks from air. Of course, Israel and United States can deal with Iran, but it will be a rather expensive proposition for both. In your opinion, if the Third World War starts, which side will India be on? We know that India has issues with China, but they also expelled recently a bunch of Canadian diplomats, and we understand that Indians are rather pro-Russian in their attitude. Now, India is not exactly pro-Russian. They're pro-Indian. They're basically their own continent in a way. And Hinduism is a whole other universe which provides them with their moral bearings and ethical bearings. And this is a huge country. First of all, it's the biggest country. They already took the first place from China. So on one hand, they expel Canadian diplomats, and on the other hand, they also partake in a union directly against China, together with the United States. And India has a different thing. They have 54% of their weapons imported from Russia, and that defines certain limits to what they can do and how they can do, and they get absolutely best pricing from Russia, so they can even trade sometimes with other countries. And it depends a lot about how this potential conflict will unfold. India may skip certain parts of it, but in any case, they will be defending their own interests, and they likely will try to avoid direct engagement into the large-scale conflict to the degree it's possible, unless they open some old festering wounds with China. But in any case, India borders with China in some very difficult places, in a very mountainous terrain where you cannot fight in armies or division scale. You can maybe have small patrols fighting each other, but that's about it. There is no space for armies to fight there. Those who are not sure if we're streaming live, it is 10:18 p.m. local. And those who are writing in the chat, glory to Ukraine, glory to heroes. Thank you. Another question, Alexey. What's the difference between Defense Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense and Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine? Is it the same? No, it is not the same. The Foreign Intelligence Service is political intelligence. Their task is to gather information related to political situation and relations between other countries, in other countries, on certain political forces that determine the politics externally. It doesn't mean they neglect military information if they get it, but predominantly they focus on the international relations and politics. And defense intelligence, for the most part, relates to military technical questions. And their main task is to prevent an aggressive war, to indicate the enemy when the enemy is ready to attack and if there is a threat. And they are working all on this. They have a department that includes military political information, which basically includes the plans of politicians in probably opponent countries and the enemy countries and the countries that fight with us. They investigate, they collect intel on those areas. That's how they divide their scope. So one of them focuses more on the politics, on the media, on that kind of relations, and military defense intelligence basically digs deeper in the technical, everything related to military and technical. They're friendly, of course. They exchange information. When foreign intelligence get information relating to military, they transfer that to the military intelligence and vice versa. They can do joint operations, but they actually very separated branches. Why foreign intelligence is more public? Well, because that's their position. That's their position of their leadership to be very public, very open. The other is more technical and more military, so they do their things in a more obscure way. Position of the military intel is that they should not be in public sphere at all. Bykov in Russia made a statement that you and Yermak, you work as lightning rods to withdraw criticism from Zelensky. We observed that effect, but my task was not to withdraw a negative from the office of the president. My task personally was never in that. It was maybe a side effect. My motivation is religious. I do not really care about the opinion of politicians, opinion of society. I don't give a damn about that. I have a different motivation. I care what God thinks about me. Everything else is only situational. So to conduct all the negative emotions from Zelensky, that's absolutely a side effect. That's not the intended work. Guys, once again, if you clicked on that advertising for that stream about uncomfortable questions to Arestovych, this is a right stream, right? But we have not gotten to uncomfortable questions yet. Because if you think these are uncomfortable questions, no, these are still good ones. I cannot say that they will be like heated iron on Alexey, but probably there'll be some interesting ones. All right, let's proceed. Hello from Nikolay. The topic of letting people in Ukraine, letting men in Ukraine of a conscription age to go leave the country. Do you have an opinion on this problem? Yeah, I published it a couple of days ago. I gave an open commentary to TSN with all the details. If anybody is interested, you can look it up there. I don't want to repeat 10-minute long monologue, but I can summarize it that government needs to turn its face towards its citizens and build trusting relations. It's not right to hold men in cages. I think men should be able to leave the country for short-term visits abroad just because they're enlisted in a proper military departments and they have foreign passport. If they're living for longer, it can be discussed. Perhaps they maybe have a different reason to study or to treat themselves, to get medical treatment. But the main thing would be that they do promise to return to Ukraine in short term if they're called upon. And those who do not do that, they get then to the red list or black list, whatever that is. The government trusted them and they made a violation. And then one could discuss as a society what to do with them. One thing if it's 200 men, another thing if it's 2 million men, because you cannot really punish 2 million, right? You cannot put them in jail or punish them somehow. But there should be some defeat and some damage in rights, maybe. But there could be a way, probably, to provide amnesty if the numbers are huge. And then they can return back and get back on the military roster list, get under that amnesty, and then they can go back across the border until they're needed, until they're called upon by their country. But that should be a discussion between civilian organizations, between congressmen, between parliament, between president's office, and cabinet of ministers. Obviously, the decision will never be perfect. It will not be liked by everybody. That's impossible. But we understand that we cannot win the war just by volunteers. Wars of that scale can be won only with use of conscripts, of people whom we draft. But if the country is calling people to go fight the war and possibly die or get maimed for that, government needs also to turn its face to people. And it's a good reason to rebuild these relations with the government. Probably build it better on trust, on trusting relations. And then if we are fighting for freedom, it's kind of going against the flow if we're holding our own men in cages, right? Not letting them leave the country. But another important factor is reconstruction of the politics of how we do the draft and how we use people in the front. Because when people, for example, in the military want to transfer to their brother or to good friends to a different brigade, and even made enemies out of in front of their comrades for trying to do that, when people need to bribe their commander to get some vacation time that they deserve by law. So, if in these conditions we open the borders, we amplify the chances that many of them will not come back. So, the problem of letting people go abroad, leave the country, is in reality is probably 10 problems in one. So, first, you need to change the way we work in the army. We need to have guarantees, have certain rights for war fighters. Then they will start to that will start shifting situation and attitude in the community, in the society, and then we can open the borders. So the next question to follow the topic. Since the beginning of this war, I'm afraid to leave my house. I don't work anywhere. There are many people like me, I know. Why, for example, we don't let us go across the border so we could at least donate something to Ukrainian military or to engage us in some military industrial complex, so at least we would be working for victory and not fighting on the front or running from doing it. Would at least be useful in bringing something to victory. I already posted and answered this question many times, and I don't want to repeat myself. Just read my answers there. Why is Alexey fighting with a pack of predators and idiots? Because it's dangerous and not interesting. I'm not fighting with anybody. I'm informing you, and the way idiots and predators react, I don't care. Whom among the today politicians would you shake hands with? Ukrainian? I think so. Okay. You probably don't understand how politics work. You can hug and shake hands with anybody in the Ukraine politics, but it doesn't mean that I share his views and support him. I hugged with Murayev, for example, and again, he was what he was before the war. You see him daily. You see what he does, what he works. People tell different stories about what I am, right? And you can't believe those. I just saw the person who has very principled positions, was paying taxes to Ukrainian government, was not noticed in any spy activity. And it's only in the internet, it's very easy to determine who is a spy. But as a spy, I want to say it's very difficult to catch a spy because it would be so easy. They all would be so very caught. They would all be caught. Now he is being accused in treason, and they probably have quite a few facts by now to accuse him of that. But when I was there in the office, people were not informing me of what material they have on him. So I could only make my deduction looking at his behavior in the office, and I can value the person if principled. If he is even of a different opinion of my exact opponent, I still would appreciate his firm position. When I would rather not shake hands with some of my comrades who just shift their positions all the time, without names. Vasily, ask another question. Shall we see any missile strikes on Moscow and Petersburg anytime soon? No, I don't think we'll see missile strikes on those cities. I think our parity will be relying more on long-range UAVs. However, everybody hopes that one day we might be able to reach them with missiles, but I would correct here, not the cities themselves. We're not hitting the cities, we're trying to hit military objects. Of course, sometimes there may be casualties and collateral damage when the missile deviates from the course or something goes wrong. But I know Ukraine is really trying to hit only military targets. I know that for 101%. From different political bloggers, I hear an opinion that Alexey is a project of Zelensky's office to create artificial opposition. What do you think about that? Okay, so what is artificial opposition? Let's define that. What is it? Am I telling the information and message that Ukrainian powers have reached the level of their competence and need to either evolve or be replaced? Why would that artificial opposition be doing that? Well, I think they mean not real opposition like Zyuganov in Russia. artificial opposition would be a different position, right? That would still be probably pushing a limited criticism and general agreement on main positions. I, however, am being accused from the office in unlimited criticism from all sides. There are different signals, and they're trying to reach to me telling, hey, stop doing it. But my critique is matching the moment, the price of the question at hand. Alexey, do you have many acquaintances and friends with whom your relations soured after you changed your rhetoric? Especially is curious, how do you communicate with Zaluzhny now? No, I don't have a single friend, good acquaintance whom I would ruin my relations with. I talked to Zaluzhny several days ago, exchanged some text messages and opinions, and I did not feel any hatred, no. On the stream of Alpha and Omega, there was a question about organizing debates with Elon Musk. Have you tried to do that? Well, first of all, I am rather busy. Second, I indeed have a direct link to Musk, but I cannot find that number. The person or new number probably is needed. The person is not picking up. I don't know if he changed the phone, and it's possible to reach him, but it's likely going to be in a mid to far range plans. It's pretty difficult to get to him directly, and it might take some time. I need to first take care of a few other elements, a few other things, and then we'll figure a way to get in touch and make him an offer to debate the matters. But we will send the message and we'll make sure he gets it. Well, whether he will or not, that'll be up to him. Okay, that's curious. How do you see that in general? How do you think that'll happen? I think, Vasil, my English is good enough to debate him. I participate in the international conferences. I speak in English and I give a lot of interviews in English. So I think I can fare all right on the debates. And we can either do a video or I can fly to the United States and meet in person. So that would not be an issue. You remember, like, in that old quote, come visit. No, 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 it's better that you come visit us. I don't know if he will visit us here in Ukraine, but I think it's a question whether he would want to have this debate. He's the richest person in the world, taking a very interesting position on different things, very different. And then here is Arestovych, one of the Ukrainian politicians, and I don't know if he will go to debate me, because there is a very prominent rule in debating in the public relations to debate only equals. And it's almost never broken. So you find somebody of the same level to debate. So you can think whatever you want about myself, but he probably doesn't consider me to be a social equal for that debate. So that's a good question if he would want to do that. I gave an interview to Lex Friedman in spring of 22. He is one of Musk's close friends, and he was actually training with Musk when he was preparing to do a match with Zuckerberg. He is from Odessa, Friedman. He was brought to the United States early, and he and Joe Rogan and Musk, they're people of so-called looking for the third way for the United States. I gave him a 3-hour-long interview. It was back in the April of 22nd. Russian troops were just moved away from Kiev, but for some reason that interview was never aired, even though he was rather delighted at the time, and he even wrote Musk and saying that, hey, we found somebody who is also supporting the third way, and he invited me to visit States and communicate with Musk directly. Maybe they didn't want to talk to somebody from Zelensky's office at the moment. What will be now, I don't know. Let me first work several conferences here in Europe, and then we'll get in touch. All right, Alex, let me help you here. Elon, if you are watching our stream, right, click the like button, subscribe, and agree to the debate. Yeah, just reach out if anybody can reach out to Elon. It would be interesting to arrange. Alexey, do you think there may be another war of Greece and Turkey because of the new American Silk Road? That's not excluded. They basically right now are in a condition of permanent Cold War, which can escalate to a hot war at any moment, and there are different reasons for that. Do you have any support, Alexey, in the system that is in power right now? On the level of people who are working there are a lot of people who sympathize and support me, but there is no systemic support. Who is supporting you in Europe? Should I count? Or that'll be probably a very long list for a couple hours. Different people from different political groups in different countries and non political groups as well. Where can people return who fled the bombings when their houses are destroyed? That's a good question to powers in Ukraine. Why they're not building new buildings, new dwellings? There are a lot of projects to bring a quick, construct a lot of things in a quick fashion. There are some mobile projects. My friend visited one recently as a concept house, but the question is why it is not being done. Alexey, how many congressmen withdrew their signatures from that attack on you? I'm not tracking all of that, Vasil. And frankly, some of them were brought in by deceit. They reached out to me and said that they were approached and said, "Are you against Russians attacking us? Please sign that petition." And without reading, some of them signed it. And who was gathering it? I think it's Pipa's people, Savsonskaya and the like. There is a legal process going. You'll learn about it eventually. And okay, so is that the story about soy and the singing, or is it a different one? It started with soy, and they started to look for a way to revenge that, and they tried to accuse me of that. Look for the women's seminar when they picked stuff out of context, and then essentially they again fell flat on their face with pushing the soy case when they're not knowing their own laws that they adopt. Because Tsoi was never a citizen of Russian Federation. He died being a USSR citizen before Russia appeared, and as a separate state. And there are even people who need to be excluded from the list, or basically need to be included on that list in order to be not be formed. Okay, so Pugacheva would not be part of that. I'm not sure about Pugacheva, if she's on the list of good singers or not. But for example, Makarevich is. But Makarevich is a citizen of Russia, right? Yeah, of course he is a citizen of Russia. Not a citizen of Israel? Well, maybe. He may have dual citizenship, but definitely he is a citizen of Russia. He is a Muscovite who grew in Moscow, and he left to Israel a couple years ago when all these things started. And before that, he was in Russia. Yes, indeed, he was. And since 2014, he took a very strong pro-Ukrainian position, for which a lot of his concerts were cancelled. Yeah, absolutely. You can play Makarevich and listen to him rather loud anywhere in Ukraine, because even this anti-constitutional law that they adopted, it is not against Makarevich. We have a local municipality statement in Kiev, and I heard there is one in Lvov maybe, about public performance of different art in Russian language. Oh yeah, that's madness. I think that's public madness, and only current president allows that, is the reason why that exists, because he does not address that matter. 73% gave him his votes for standing up for the rights of Ukrainians, and what? Article 24, nobody can be repressed on any religious or language matter, and that article defends and also protects development of languages of minority and other languages, not only Russian. So this is a populist anti-constitutional laws that have been adopted in some places. So where is president? Where are the congressmen to fight that? What's going on? Guys, heads up, in 5 minutes we'll get to uncomfortable questions. But before this, I'll ask you once again to subscribe to Alexey, to Alpha and Omega, to Holovanov stream, and of course to a privateer station if you are listening or watching that in English language. While we have a moment, please click that and click the like. So you would recommend it to other viewers. Okay, what arguments Alexei would have to bring Ukrainians back from Europe? Pay them more? How do you compete with higher salaries in Europe, with more freedoms, with less corruption element and mafia element in the society? A serious question, because I have a lot of women friends who want to take their men from Ukraine after the war. That's a serious question First of all, we need to give them reasons to come back. We need to suggest a good future that they want to be part of. Obviously, not all of them will return, but many will. When you will be running for parliament or any other position, I would love to join your party. Um, is there anything we can join? Yeah, we do have all that, but right now it's martial law in Ukraine, and whenever the actual elections will start happening, we might announce that. So we will announce that. So if Russians do not take Avdiivka, will Alexei eat his hat? Have I said that I will eat my hat if they will not take Avdiivka? Have I bet that? I can roll this hat and shove it in the portemonnaie of the person asking the question because no. Okay, thank you for being so delicate, unlike the previous stream where I had to blush a little. So, yeah, thank you for your vivid language here, vivid French. I want to hear Alexei's opinion about the power, if they are afraid or not of wrath of people. Do you think they'll be forgiven for corruption that steals means to fight the war, and how the bribed person should be responsible? Who told you that they're not afraid? They are afraid. They are seriously afraid. How is that expressed? Well, first of all, they increase the fight with corruption, so-called helter-skelter, but they're still trying to. Of course, elite corruption still exists, but they're fighting on the lower level with conscription offices and the heads of, with other elements, and they also start adding it to rhetoric that it's unacceptable. And fourth, I know that they're afraid. Regarding responsibility of the corruptioners themselves, this is a complex question. First of all, you need to remove the reasons for the bribes, so you need to simplify the work, streamline the work of government, and make it more transparent, because bribes are given to to lubricate the government machine, otherwise it doesn't work. So you need to change the attitude and the work flow for people working for government, so that's quite a bit of reform. And the main thing is you need to turn the initial intake points to face citizens, because usual citizens, they don't see those people who steal billions or hundreds of billions from the budget. He sees a police officer, he sees a social worker, he sees an HOA or some community service and city service people. So these elements need to be addressed, and definitely there'll be a separate line in my program. As for elite corruption, things work differently, but that's why there are anti-corruption organs, which in my case will get a lot of support from me, full support from me to go and prosecute and go investigate. But the reason for elite corruption is usually a rapid disbalance in the economy, an attempt to monopolize on your existing advantages. So that is also a rather complex reason that needs to be addressed. And right now I don't want to do the pre-election campaigning here on the stream, but when the time comes, I'll highlight the ways to solve it. And I do have a team who will help me to do that. Trust me, we know how to. All right, thank you. Now we're getting to drumroll uncomfortable questions. And those who are watching the show recorded, you should not have scrolled here. The other questions before that moment were just as good. Okay, so why Alexey, who is positioning himself as right-centric and the critic of leftists, he behaves as a leftist and attacks the guys on the right. He publicly demanded debates with Lubarsky and then forgot about that. He calls Tabach Trumpist, and he says he's very difficult schedule, so he doesn't want to talk and debate with some people. I never really demanded anything with Lubarsky. He was clashing with Yuriy Romanenko. They were discussing, debating. I don't even know much. What does he do? As for Tabach, I know him in person. I know very well what he does. It's not interesting for me. And this is not a label when I call him a Trumpist. He's defending Trump and his positions. I understand his position, and I'm just not interested in debating that. I'm more interested in people whom I don't understand, who have very different views or strange views. I understand Tabach rather well, and I have no qualms with him. But he started some attacks in my direction a while ago, but that's on his conscience. I still have no questions to him. He's a good fella. Alexey, who is your sponsor? A sponsor of what? I'm just asking uncomfortable questions. Our citizens in Ukraine, our Ukrainian fellows, are very interesting people. They're saying interesting things. That Alexei is nothing and nobody because nobody stands to support him. Then they're also saying that Arestovych sold himself to oligarchs. Then he says that the person also keep the same thought that he is not selling himself to oligarchs and nobody supports him in the office, so he will not achieve anything. So, guys, can you make your mind? Which of these three positions am I? I actually am donating a lot of money. I don't need a sponsor. I'm giving a lot of money to our war fighters. I'm giving a lot of money to the kids who suffered from this war. I think right now I'm over 11 million hryvnias of my personal money that I've donated for different causes here. And I think it's the first time I'm calling that, not that I'm counting, but my managers who are doing that, they recently told me that it's reached that threshold quite a bit ago. And from every seminar, every activity that I do where I make money, I donate part of it to our troops on the front. So I'm not in the immediate need of that support. I'm making good money. As for political sponsorship, I don't need that sponsorship. I'll create a fund and I'll ask my supporters to donate to the fund, and you guys will be my joint supporters, as sponsors. If you think I'll go talk to any of the oligarchs who have money, big money in Ukraine, you're wrong. I'm not going to do that. There are good businessmen who are willing to help me, but I think the main part of the contributions will be from the society with 5 or 10 hryvnias contribution on average. Have you counted, for example, how much would be needed to build a basic good pre-election campaign? Well, no, we didn't run that budget in this regard, but partly due that there are different ways to run the campaign. There will be no time for billboards and the usual expenses for the visuals. It probably will be based mostly on debates and rhetoric and appearances. And for that, you don't need too much money. Of course, you need some, and just to register, you need some. As a candidate for president and as a party, of course, but that's not too big of money, and we'll ask our supporters to share the burden. Also, among the uncomfortable questions, Alexei is putting himself so much into the opposition, so far in the opposition gate, because he senses the elections coming. No, not because of that. Because I calculated that the harm done by the Ukrainian government right now is exceedingly the positive effect that they are bringing to the country. They've been attacking me since March of 22nd. 70% of the compromising materials and attacks were ordered by folks from the office of the president on me. I was in the time in the office, and did I ever attack them? No. Actually, being there, supported and said that I am fully supportive of the president and his team in different matters. Even though when I indeed was seeing certain bottlenecks and concerns. But back then, they still was a good use of what they were doing. For example, now there's a summit in Malta. 65 countries are discussing the president's formula of peace. Yermak is working there, and they're bringing good positive result for Ukraine. But they're also lagging behind and making other decisions. They're not catching up with Russian Federation, and they're causing harm in many other branches of our economy and other matters. So, and there is another way. It's not necessary to replace their government fully. There could be a coalition government formed as long as the right decisions are being made. And if the only way to make them listen, to make them understand the mistakes they're making, is to criticize them harsh before the election, then I'll do that. Whatever works. If you think I want to put my butt in a presidential chair, you're very wrong. I've spent 2.5 years in the presidential office. I can probably not imagine a more unthankful work. It's literally, for me, a walk into hell. And even if you don't reform anything, it's still hellish. But if you go there for reforms, if you want to implement reforms in the country, the opposition will be huge, and there'll be a lot of rich people too who will be in opposition, and it's actually a direct physical danger as well. So those people who are asking, "Oh, you want to replace Zelensky in the chair," and it's just rhetoric. Guys, I've been in that office. I know what it is. I don't wish that upon my enemy. And I am going because I feel my duty. I told you, my motivation has largely a religious character. I'm for the light against the darkness, and I am eager to go for these sacrifices, even though it would be much easier for me to travel the world, give seminars and lectures. You know, I'm invited as a key speaker to a bunch of international prestigious conferences. And I know some of the people who hate me cannot believe that, but yeah, I am invited to different places and people want to hear what I have to say. But I do have the feeling of duty in front of myself and before the God and our country. So that's what I'm doing it. Next question. We're still in the uncomfortable questions. Why is it advantageous for Alexey for Ukraine to not return the occupied territories? Whom does he think he is? And why, instead of focusing on Russian defeat, he's trying to attack our own? Guys, you are being destroyed by not seeing the perspective and complexity of the problem. Watch my statement on the Tallinn at the Forum of Russian Opposition. I think there is no more effective person who tells Russians or shows them why their regime is so ineffective. And by the way, I'm being listened in Russia in the General Command, in Kremlin, and in Russia, the level of my popularity is very high. So I actually am talking to Russians a lot, and I am sending that message to them a lot. Second, you're not reading my message right, if you're asking this question. The concept of liberation of Ukraine is that not we only liberate our territories until 1991, but Kiev becomes a center of the Eastern Europe politics. So my ambitions go way further, with appropriate influence and all. For myself, the borders of 1991 is not enough. My goals reach way further. Yeah, I'm talking about other special civilization, which is somewhat old, the Holy Rus, Kievan Rus from the past, but also looking forward as a new civilizational organization on the east of Europe. So for me, these borders is just a small step. And I calculate things, I see how it can be possible, and I'm connecting my rhetoric. We are not making the right decisions to get to the borders of 1991. Our current government is not making right decisions to get to these borders, and that upsets me because my plans go way beyond those borders. That's why I'm criticizing the power, because I do want to get at least to the borders of that level so I can work further. I'll say one more thing that will be maybe more understandable for everybody. If Zelensky was doing everything that's needed for the country, I would be praising him, and I would not go to any elections. Why would I want to be there? A congressman needs to be there in a congress for 15 days out of the month, breathe all that air with hundreds of other people, and listen to all that crap. It's not an enviable position. I have other things to do. It's not a favorable job occupation for me. If they were doing fine things for our military, for our citizens, I'd be praising them, helping them. I'd be the first one out there supporting and telling and highlighting the good things they've done. But unfortunately, they are not doing it. So advising and criticizing, it's also a somewhat limited effect. The only way to really change things is to actually go there and do it. If there would be somebody whom I knew would be able to do it, I would again say, fantastic, I'll support that person. I'd be just reading my seminars. Do you think Crimea can be deoccupied militarily during this war? There is a scenario where we do that. But for that, we need to change a lot of things, both economically, militarily, politically, internal, external politics. So that probability right now is very low. We are standing into strategic defense. We're not talking about taking the territory back at the moment. We are already? Yeah, we are. And until we aggregate enough reserves, will not be able to do it. It's going to be an active defense, right? But still, it's strategic defense. And for how long we'll be in that position? Until we store enough reserves. And here's a number for you to consider. European Union were going to provide us 1 million shells. They could only provide us with about 300,000. North Korea, in the meantime, supported Russia with 350,000 artillery shells in the same period. So this is a matter of resource, not even the mastery of fighting. A question to Alexey in regards to his budding political career. Don't you think that your several million subscribers is more based on political technology and not the politics itself, and you're not popular as a politician. Well, let's check. Why should we be guessing? As a politician, my position is very straightforward. I want to create a country for people who want to participate in a better future and participate in this country economically and in other ways. I'll go for elections and I'll give them a chance to vote for me. If Ukrainian people will say, no, we don't want you, we don't like your position, then I'll say, oh, thank you, God. Now I can remove all my duty and obligations and other moral things that I face internally. And I would say, okay, great. I was rejected by people, so I can go and read my seminars and travel the world. But if the people will say, yes, we believe you, and will support you enough and get me either to Congress, or if the stars will align, get to the seat of president, then I would agree to do that as well. You're funny people. I am taking a burden, agreeing to potentially take a burden of a hellish work in order to make the country better. I'm not doing it for myself. For myself, I have everything. Trust me. I literally don't know what else to wish for myself. I have everything. I'm well set. But, and for kids and for grandkids, right? I'm using my head and my labor. I have not stolen a hryvnia, unlike many other politicians who pretend to be your better management that could be. I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it for myself too, because of my, again, religious and my relations with Lord. But if you as a society reject me summarily, I would say, bless myself and say, awesome, I don't need to go there then. So I hear the phrase that in a case of successful presidency, then in 10 years, the country will be. So do I understand that you are planning then 2 terms if you're going for a presidential race? Absolutely, because 1 term is not enough. You barely have enough time to do it in one term. Why am I saying that? 5 years of presidency is roughly 2 to 3 big reforms, not more. Even a super genius will not be able to do more, and we'll be lucky if we manage to. For example, judicial reform, taxes, and maybe some other economic reforms. Oh, that's huge, right? So that, and just that gives a little bit of fresh air for our citizens, some hope for the future. And my main accusation of powers is that they aggregated our nation hope, and then they dumped it. Remember when they started, how many people believed that changes are possible? And where is that? Like my non-believer friend, an atheist, he said, they're metaphysically guilty because they buried hopes of the society. They stole the hopes of many people. This is the worst of crimes. And they've done that. Did they want it? Was it more of an accident? One can say there were COVID and war, but regardless, they have not done it, and likely they will not be able to fulfill on their promise. That's why I'm going there. I can do that. I'm basically going there, continuing Zelensky program, what he ran on. I'm actually a sort of supporter of his program because, in a good way, because he promised a lot of good things, but he never delivered on them. And there are over 15 serious reforms that need to be done. So maybe 2 to 3 in a first term, maybe 4 or 5 if we're really lucky and have enough power to work and stay healthy and be able to work 24 hours a day. And the second term, what is a president in a second term? For the first year, the second year, maybe he is still being listened to, and then the power in the system stops listening to him. You won't have majority in the parliament. The powers to be will resisting like hell. So maybe you can do 2 more reforms on the second term, 5, 6 if you're lucky again. That will fix the situation so it cannot be reverted back. Like in Georgia, Saakashvili did some reforms and then his opponents came and took over, but they cannot rewind certain things. They cannot undo some things that he had done. So that's what I want to do in Ukraine. Are you ready, in case of debates, face Zelensky and discuss a debate with him, these matters? Absolutely. I'm ready to address it with anybody. They can all gather together there, and I'll talk to all of them. Listen, I'm a person with a religious motivation. That means I'm not there to fight the war for war, to label somebody just for calling them names. I'm giving judgments because that's what I think. And I actually have certain things to thank President for. Whether I'll be talking to Poroshenko, Pritula, or Zelensky, I'll start with thank you for what they've done, and then I'll start asking questions, which I think deserve to be asked of them. I would not accuse them, I'll just be asking questions. And you guys, as electors, will find your peace and understanding depending upon their answers. Lend-lease is not beneficial for Ukraine, of your phrase in 22. Why in 23 you're saying that we need more arms? Oh, you think that if I'd be praising Lend-Lease in 22, we would be given that more arms back then? Lend-Lease, yeah, Libarsky and Tabach use that topic to attack Biden and his presidency because that supports Trump, whom they support. Lend-Lease is not a solution. This is just a procedure that allows president to donate more, to give more arms to the country. It is just a way to simplify that transfer. And it was adopted, but Biden found a different way to transfer arms. And in order to multiply the amount of arms being transferred, it's not about stomping your feet about Lend-Lease. It's convincing Biden administration to transfer more arms. Lend-Lease is just a document that allows you to do it differently. And it's a different way to do it. And it doesn't matter if Arestovych supports that or not, if it is signed or not. The main thing was a principled decision made by Biden. And he principally doesn't want to transfer more. Doesn't matter if he has Lend-Lease, if he doesn't have Lend-Lease. You're talking in your politics about freedom for all, but we hear your yuck towards LGBTQ. What is your position? And in regards to abortions and other anti-religious topics. Guys, my friends, I am a religious person, and I am rather conservative in these matters, but I would not care about what people do in bed. But there will not be government propaganda of this, and there'll be no propaganda in schools of these lifestyles. You're adults. If you want to, you can engage in all kinds of behavior as long as it doesn't harm others. But telling these stories to kids about two princesses or prince and prince, that will not be when I'm a president. Arestovych was talking about heightened expectations from counteroffensive. Does he feel guilty for failed expectations? Yeah, I feel so. I actually did make a post about it. I said I created overheated expectations from counteroffensive, and I can repeat once again why was I doing that. Because at the moment, according to numbers, it was possible. We could do that. We could reach certain goals in the south, but politically, certain decisions were not made, so those options became unavailable. Alexey Nikolaevich, when you get power, should we be afraid that you may be a dictator worse than Stalin? No, I won't be, but I'll be rather stern. And those people who will be in the way of happiness of Ukrainian people, I would say don't be in that way. It better not to be there. I can give you a couple sentences if I'm addressing our parliament. If I ever do the inaugural speech, I would say, dear citizens, I'll give you a country in 10 years that will be an envy of the world. You'll envy yourself. Our people deserve that happiness and that future and the right for wealth and creative abilities, creative opportunities in our country. We paid for that in our blood for hundreds of years. But those who want to be an obstacle on the way, I advise do not. Unlike other presidents of Ukraine and people in power, I am coming from enforcing agencies, so I know what I'm talking about. First of all, I'll raise the salaries of those enforcement agencies 2 or 3 times, and then I'll make them work. And you mean all the civilian workers? Many, yes, but the enforcement agencies especially. Because the person serving the government in the government position, he is in the service, right? That's why it's called a service. We'll need good talented managers. Talented managers in private sector could be making more money because right now they're not. But going to government, for example, he's losing some of his rights. He and his family is being monitored financially. His wife needs to write and himself needs to write what purchases have they made above certain threshold. So as a society, we need to be thankful to this family for going to serve our people. So limiting yourself and rights to serve your community, that's respectable. But there's got to be an oath that the person takes, certain insignia, and certain respect from society. We'll actually probably make a few movies about them. But the salary of the civil servant in this case should be 15% higher than the private sector. But we need talented people. We're not doing any populism that will take away the salaries of bureaucrats. No, we're talking about the better people. Look, Minister of Defense of Ukraine is managing 5 to 7% of our budget. This is billions in money. But his salary is 47,000 hryvnias. Do you think that's the right position? Or, for example, an investigator of police who is a young gal who is a captain who just finished some training, and he or she right now are leading, are managing about 100 cases at the same time. And the financial amount of these cases may reach hundreds of millions of dollars, especially if she's investigating crimes of a big capital-based enterprise. And her salary is now what, maybe 15,000 hryvnias? Why do you think they keep these people so low on a social ladder when a colonel of intel services cannot buy something for his wife, the dress or something? So why is that? Because it's easier to corrupt people who don't have much. In my government, they will be paid well. They will not be ashamed for working for the government. They will be having very high salaries and will be able to select from the best into these positions, and society will be thankful that while they could hang around in the nightclubs and do nothing and go to Mallorca and make big money in business, they voluntarily limit themselves. This is similar to military. They limit their rights voluntarily and they fight for us while people are able to sit in restaurants in the capital. The same thing should be, in some degree, with government bureaucrats as well, with people servicemen. So I remind you that I'm from the enforcement agencies. Of course, I will not be Putin, but I have to warn those who will be on the way of reforms. They will suffer. All right. So we are over 1 hour mark, 45,000 watching us live. Dear viewers, thank you for trusting your important resource, such as time, to us. And what do you think, Alexey, about those sharp questions? I was handpicking them. Thank you so much. Yeah, these were wonderful questions. Thank you. Thank viewers. Please continue doing that. But as adults, right, try to ask questions not when you want to just pick on me, but when you really want to understand things, right? A great question about land lease, for example. Or would you be a tyrant? Or these are wonderful questions. I totally appreciate them. It's very easy to ask sharp question, actually. If you just look at your concerns, mistrusts, and things you're worried about, that's what you should ask. For example, Alexey, you've changed your position many times, and perhaps you are lying. Maybe you're lying right now. And let's discuss and let's address all these concerns. I respect you as viewers, and I want to be honest with you. So let's talk. Let's continue this conversation. And I really appreciate this format. I think this is a fantastic one. This is the only stream where we talk live like this. Thank you, everybody. It's great that we crystallized this format in some fashion. I really appreciate it. And viewers in the commentaries are also appreciative of this form of that direct communication. So thank you once again for this opportunity and keeping it ongoing. Dear viewers, once again, thank you, and come up with new questions. And do not forget to subscribe, to click the like button, to Alexey, to Vasil Golovanov, to Alpha&Omega, and of course to Privateer Station if you are watching that in English. Thank you so much. We'll see you the other week. That's it for today.